Thank you. All right. It is 6:47 on February 20th, 2025. Welcome to the Town of Sherborn Select Board meeting. As has been common practice, we are going to open up an executive session. It should be relatively short and come back at hopefully 7 o'clock with a hearing at 7:10 for our open session. I'm going to please ask the Assistant Town Administrator to please read the executive session agenda.
Good evening. Tonight's executive session is pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act on the authority of General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 22, to review the minutes of executive sessions and Suffolk Construction versus DCAM 449 Mass 444, parentheses 2007. The review of draft executive session minutes of January 5th, 2023, January 19th, 2023, February 2nd, 2023, February 16th, 2023, February 23rd, 2023, March 2nd, March 16th, March 30th, 2023, April 6th, April 20th, May 4th, May 17th, and June 29th, all of 2023.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any comments or revisions to the agenda? All right, as chair, I declared an executive session warranted for the aforementioned agenda item, and I move that we move into an executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And Marianne?
Aye.
I might as well. Thank you. Please turn off the recording. All right, it is 7:03 on February 20th, 2025. We have just exited our executive session and now beginning the open session portion of the select board meeting. I'm going to please ask the Assistant Town Administrator to please read the open session agenda.
Good evening. After I get through reading the agenda, the select board can vote to amend or approve the agenda. There is a public comment section, but I have had no request from anybody tonight for a public comment. Items can be taken out of order and topics not anticipated 48 hours in advance may be added. And tonight at 7:10 p.m. we have a public hearing for a common victualist transfer of license for C&L Frosty. Item number 2 is the Recreation Commission vacancy. Item number 3 is Municipal Empowerment Act, a discussion. Item number 4 is the review, discussion, and consideration of draft warrant articles for the 2025 annual town meeting. Item number 5 is the consent agenda for the TA payroll warrant and draft minutes of January 23rd, 2025. Item number 6 is select board reports, and item number 7 is town administrator updates.
Thank you, Diane. Now, as everyone knows, at a public hearing, you cannot take it early. So I'm going to recommend that maybe we discuss the Recreation Commission vacancy first and then move on to the public hearing for the victor's license. Any objections to that?
Nope.
Okay. And then any motions relative to my amended agenda?
Move approval.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Marianne?
Aye.
I might as well. Okay, so who's going to talk? Is that Jeremy going to talk on the Recreation Commission vacancy?
Where is it?
Yep. So in your packet, you'll see there was a notice provided to the town clerk that one of the recreation commissioners, which are elected positions, are resigned effective February 7th. As you're aware, the commission is a board of 3, so they still have 2 members, so they're still a functioning a board. They do have 2 to make a quorum, and as required, this notice has been provided to the select board such that you, along with the remaining members of the Recreation Commission, can determine what you would like to do in the interim prior to the town election.
If I remember correctly, we had this with the planning board. We can nominate someone, I believe, off cycle, like outside the election until the next election. Is that correct?
Correct.
This board combined with the whatever board it is, in this case, be Recreation Board, will do just that. Well, we do have caucus coming up in a couple weeks, an election in May. I guess what are people's thoughts on doing something out of cycle or just waiting till the election actually occurs?
Well,
Any-
two points. One, Jackie, I think, has a comment there, but
Oh,
also
turn on comments.
I think it's important to do something in the interim because the Recreation Commission has a fairly major warrant article on the pickleball courts and tennis courts.
Okay. So what would the process be? I mean, just one of those things where we have to by policy, you have to advertise for 30 days.
Yes.
Would it be effectively moot anyway? Do you know, let's say we do it. We say just like right now, we advertise for 30 days. And then by the mid-March, actually, that's 28 days by mid-March. Actually, I don't know if we can get away with that. By mid-March, we could then vote to nominate someone.
You
And I
really need
appreciate what
it
you're
in
saying,
time
Jeff,
for
but
town meeting.
what's that?
Needed in time for town meeting, I think, not for advisory.
Okay.
But the
Mm,
caucus is, I think, March 4th, maybe
March 6th.
March
six,
6th.
yeah.
March 6th. So the beauty of the timeline is that we advertise for the position. But in the meantime, on March 6th,
Oh, yeah.
the caucus is going to nominate somebody. And I have in the past always gone to support at the filling of the vacancy, the person who was nominated a caucus. So the caucus committee does its work, somebody gets nominated, that's going to be the candidate. That's usually unopposed. Why not let them start early?
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes
that makes sense.
yeah,
You
that
know,
makes sense. Sorry.
someone could still take out papers and run against them and
Yes.
replace them, but at least we'd have someone up and running, and it would be the caucus nominee who has a good chance of getting elected.
Now,
Yes.
Jackie, is Jackie there? I see her name. Um, let's say we do that. Let's say we have caucus nominee, and we say, okay, you're going to be. We'll nominate you. We'll vote for you to be in there, and so on and so forth. Would the ballot say candidate for reelection?
No.
Hi, I'm here. Sorry,
I,
I couldn't find my
did you hear
hand.
my
I
question?
apologize.
So Paul's talking about like so let's say at whatever meeting we have, it might be the second one in March, you know, that'll be 28 days. It'll actually be 27, 26 days from advertisement. Let's say we appoint someone to be a recreation commissioner. We do it with the out of cycle thing with the select board and the recreation commission. And that person is also the caucus nominee, because that's probably what we'll do. We'll see, we nominate a caucus, and the board will likely, we'll see, go that direction. We have to evaluate, of course.
Right.
Will the ballot say candidate for reelection? Okay.
No, it
Okay.
will only say caucus nominee. So for recreation, I apologize. I made an error on my notification. There'll be a 1 year to fill the position that was just resigned from
Yep.
David Goldberg on the ballot, and then will be a 3 year. My understanding is that Andrew Dearborn is not going to be running. So the caucus committee is aware. I did let them know that there's a 1 year position that's going to be open. And so I believe that they are working on trying to find someone. So it'll be caucus nominee for 1 year and then a caucus nominee for the 3 year.
Okay. It's good to know.
Did
Now-
Dave Goldberg give a reason for his resignation?
Not in the letter.
No,
Now, I want to ask something else. So we're required but to give a 30-day notice. If we vote on this on the 20th, it will not be a 30-day notice. Is that a concern enough amongst this board? Should I push it to April 3rd?
Yes.
Or do you want to do March 20th? Which will not meet the 30 notice, but comes with the intent. It'll be like whatever. If Diane can advertise it Friday tomorrow, I guess it'll be 27-day notice. Otherwise, it's April 3rd. Yes, Paul.
No, I think the policy, we fought long and hard for transparency in appointments. And as part of that, we advertise for 30 days. And it may very well be that we'll get an absolutely stellar candidate that'll come in.
Good.
It
Sure.
may be that there'll be no applicants, but at least equal opportunity to anybody and everybody to apply for all town positions. I think it's important to maintain that. So trying to shave some days off here and some days off of there, or add some days. No, it was too hard a fight and too long a fight to get it to the point of being a routine practice.
Any other thoughts?
I agree with
Yeah.
Paul. If the policy is 30 days, then we should make it 30
Okay.
days in the absence of some sort of extenuating circumstance.
So that'll
So,
be the first meeting in April then?
April 3rd.
April
yeah.
3rd. Okay, I'll
So-
change that.
Dan, I'm gonna ask Dan Sitchell if you're there. A question. When is Bloody Saturday?
March 22nd.
Okay. Do we care that we won't have someone there to speak on March 22nd? Probably not. Okay.
Well,
But
There-
there
there
will
will
be,
be
there
two
are
other
two other
commissioners.
members.
yeah,
Actually,
There are still two
it was
other
a small meeting.
recreation
Let's do the raise hand thing. I'm usually very strict about the raise hand. I get lackadaisical about it because, like, but now, who's next? Okay, yeah, Dan.
Hey, I do think that with the warrant articles that the Rec Commission has put forward, there will be considerable discussion at the public hearing. So would be good to have one of the members of the Rec Commission or perhaps Dave Wells, somebody there to present those and describe them.
Well, it should be at least two, so I probably don't need the third on that date. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what they'll put on for April 3rd. All right. I think that's it with that agenda item. With that, it's 7:13. Well, any further ado, we're ready for the public hearing for the victor's license for CNL Frosties. Okay, so this is a public hearing. I'm going to read the public hearing notice. The Sherborn Select Board will hold a virtual public hearing on Thursday, February 20th, 2025 at 7:10 p.m. on the application of Joseph Kim, the K Brothers Inc., for the transfer of a common victor's license for CNL Frosties, 27 Main Street, North Main Street. Oral and written comments are invited. Okay, like a public hearing, I'm going to open this up first to comments among the board, and then I'll start actually with Jeannie and then the applicant itself. If there's any comments or concerns with them, then I'll go public board. So Jeannie, do you have anything to say? And then I see Joseph Kim is
No,
here.
Joseph is actually on the call. He applied for the transfer of the license. It was in the paper. It's fairly easy. So we can let Joseph talk and what he wants.
Do you have any comments to add?
I have a question.
Well, Joe, do you have a comment you want to add? Then I'll take it to the board.
No, my name is Joseph.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Very good. Okay, Jeff. Yeah, please.
I just
We'll take it to the
wondered,
board now.
what was the reason for the change? Was it just a business transaction or was there some issue that caused the need for a change?
There's no issues at all. So the previous owners, they wanted to sell the business, and I had some relationships with them. So they actually recommended selling the business to me, and I was interested. So I ended up buying the business with my cousin, Kenneth, who also has experience in restaurant industry.
Good. Okay. Thank you for responding.
You're welcome.
Paul, you had a question, comment?
Yes, so CNL Frosties is really a very important institution here in our town. And people are used to it and like it. And there's quite a fan base, if you will, for it. Which leads me to the question, are you going to continue the same operation or are you going to be doing something different? And if different, what do you have in mind?
So to introduce a little bit of myself, I have business dry cleaners in Natick, and I've been doing it for 8-9 years. And at my dry cleaners, I also have a lot of clients from Sherborn, and that's how I knew about CNL Frosty and how CNL is significant to the town of Sherborn. So for now, we will keep everything the same. Everything, even the menus and the ice cream, everything will be the same. And if needed, we may add some menus in the future. but right now everything will be stays as is.
Very
I'm
good.
just gonna add one disclosure is that I know Joe also from the dry cleaning side of the business too. He's
All
right.
terrific. So I just wanted to give a shout out.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, I'll open. Oh, Steven, please go ahead.
Just one quick question. Will there be any sort of interruption to the service? Like, are you planning on remodeling at all? Because I know when the current owners took over, they did some remodeling of the interior. So I was just wondering if you were doing anything to the physical structure, or are you just kind of taking over, but operation is 100% unchanged?
No major changes. I do want to point out that I talked to the building commissioner, Chris Kenny, and food inspector, Tom Curran. They pointed it out that we need to install a handicap accessible bathroom to the public. And they also granted 1 year to install a new bathroom. So that will be the only addition to the structure.
Very good. Marion.
Bathrooms are in very, very short supply in town center. In fact, there aren't any. So we're starting from zero. And that's partly because of the water and sewer situation. So I'm wondering if this addition of a bathroom has been reviewed by the Board of Health and what your plans are in that regard.
It has not been formally reviewed by Board of Health. They actually just brought up this to my attention. So I just started talking about installing the bathroom with the building commissioner as well as the food inspector. So I will share the status as I have more updates on this.
Great, thank
I
you.
will say, I will say, and I don't want it to take up this Victor's license. I don't think it has much to do with it, but I would say that the right now is a tight tank, and I think it's going to be difficult. And if there, well, whatever, it's going to be a challenge in the bathroom. I'll put it that way. All right, I'll take it to the general public. Any comments from the general public? The questions or anything? Okay. Anything else from the board?
Yeah,
Yeah, Paul.
I'm ready to make a motion to approve.
Okay,
So
make a
if this-
motion. Then I recognize Marianne.
Okay,
Oh, I just wanted to say that I want to say welcome and
Thank you.
we wish you success. And I presume your partner has some experience in the restaurant business, but if not, I'm sure you'll find such expertise. And we wish you well.
Thank you very much for the kind words. And my other partner, who is my cousin, he actually has a restaurant in Boston. So that's why I partnered up with him so I can kind of make a synergy in this establishment.
Very good.
Great.
Can I ask what restaurant he owns?
Seafood restaurant.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess any motions. Yeah, Paul, you were making a motion.
I
Yeah.
seconded it, and I seconded it.
Oh, did okay.
Yeah, all right. Good.
I Paul,
Well,
just make a motion more formally, just because it's a hearing, and then for the
Well,
record.
I move to approve the transfer of the common victualer's license from C&L Frosties to Joseph Kim, the K Brothers, Inc.
Okay.
I'll second the
You second
motion.
it? All right. All in favor, Stephen?
I
Jeff?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
I might as well. Very good. Welcome to town, and we
Thanks,
look forward
Joe.
to it.
Talk
Thank
to you
you.
later, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, so next on now, it's the number 3, the Municipal Empowerment Act. I think Jeremy might introduce this, but I think Paul might have some more discussion on, might fill in some details in this as well.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So this came up at your last meeting when you were talking about the town meeting warrant. So we included it on this agenda, so you're going to have more of a discussion. Please recall the Municipal Empowerment Act is a refile bill put in by the governor refiled from last year's session. It didn't get through the session. They were very busy last year, but it's been refiled. It contains a number of items that might be of interest to you folks in the town. It's currently an act. It needs to work its way through the legislative process. But in your packet, there's an overview prepared by the Haley Driscoll administration about the Municipal Empowerment Act. And then there's also, following that, a section by section summary of all of its contents. So those two things give you a fair amount of detail as far as what is proposed to be included in the act. At a high level, it's aimed to provide municipalities with some additional options for revenue generation. It reforms procurement rules so that school and town procurement are on an even par. It updates some rules for school borrowing projects, includes some mechanisms for double poll prohibitions. It extends or actually makes permanent, I should say, virtual remote meetings and hybrid meetings for public bodies. Includes some things about OPEB liabilities, enables more, clarifies some things to enable more sharing of municipal employees from town to town, sort of helps address potential conflicts of interest with those sharing, allows regional boards of health, not boards of health, boards of assessors, and also centralizes the assessing function for public utilities in the Commonwealth. So, among many other.
I mean, there was a lot of good features in this. There's no question about it. Paul, do you want to add anything to this? Yeah.
Yes. So what I've been doing with the towns that I represent as town council is a article for the warrant for the annual town meetings that are upcoming. The article would read, to see if the town will vote to accept and implement any general laws adopted by the general court for the benefit of municipalities, or take any other action related thereto. And let me make a couple of additional points. One is that yes, there are additional revenue opportunities here, but passage of this article all by itself, let me phrase that differently, putting this article on the warrant all by itself does not automatically bring about additional revenues or implement anything. We have to accept the general law and then follow the process in the general law. Second point is that all of these features are combined with and are riding on the coattails of the virtual meetings reauthorization. That current authorization expires on March 31, and therefore the expectation is that this bill, because it's being driven by that feature, has got to be passed before the end of March. Therefore, it will be in place roughly a month before our town meeting. So yes, it's sort of last minute, but if advisory thinks it's too quick and too fast, you can always take no action on the article. But if we don't have the article, we can't do anything on any of these improvements. We'd have to wait for another town meeting. And there is a month, there should be a month between the end of April, which is when our town meeting takes place, and the passage of this legislation. And in that month, I'm hoping that there would be time for the board and for the public and for advisory to consider some of these general laws, these improvements in the Municipal Empowerment Act. And maybe then at town meeting, under this placeholder article, have some motions to actually adopt some features or implement some features, all for the benefit of the community. And therefore, we don't have to wait a year. So the ask here is, I'd like to put an article on the warrant. I'd like to propose that we put an article on the warrant along the lines I just articulated as a placeholder, and then let's see what happens with the Municipal Empowerment Act.
So it would be a kind of a general article, say basically to adopt this act or adopt the Municipal Warrant Act, and then would we have to at town meeting make addendums to adopt things? That's from a little unclear.
We'd have to have motions that would do specific things. So let's say one of the acts provisions is to I'm trying to pick something not controversial.
Oh yeah, I was gonna name one, but
I'm hesitant to name anything specific because there are revenue increases, and some people might object to the revenue increases.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this isn't the time for that discussion. That's a discussion for town meeting after the act is enacted. The discussion we're having now is whether or not we want to put in place the means so that that discussion could take place in the end of April.
okay.
And there would be, if the decision by advisory and the Board of Selectmen is, yes, let's go for it. Let's go for,
Mhm.
let's say, a meals tax increase. If that was the decision, there then would be a motion made by advisory at town meeting to adopt sections X, Y, and Z of the Municipal Empowerment Act and to implement an increase in tax, a meals tax of whatever number we pick, up to 1%.
Okay, I'm going to take questions on the board, who I'm pretty sure will have questions for you. So let's start with Marianne.
All right. I read through all of these. There are a bunch of them that are good. I can see opening a town meeting vote to adopt in the general way the options that are laid out in the Municipal Empowerment Act. But for specific points in that act, I don't see how they can be adopted at this town meeting because they're very distinct. They're extremely different, and each of them deserves a discussion on its own. For example, the Regional Board of Assessors or Chapter 90 or that sort of thing. I don't think we can lump all those things together and propose that we have the option to just do these things. I think we can support this act if it's passed that fast by the legislature, which will be amazing to me from our recent experience. But you know, like flexibilities in post-retirement surcharges, to pick one that would be controversial, surcharges on the excise tax. That sort of thing raises hackles, as we know, because it's a increase in tax of any kind. And others are kind of no-brainers, like the financing of the right of first refusal. That's nothing but positive for a town. I just don't think they can be adopted at this town meeting en masse. Maybe you could explain how that would work, Paul. I don't see how it would work.
Yeah.
So
okay, Paul.
if I could, through the chair, sorry, I didn't mean to
Okay.
start. The idea is it's like the omnibus capital article where we say the town's going to spend money on capital, and then we have a series of items. We don't, the proposal is to have this sort of generic article. But what the motions would be, you don't have to adopt everything. You can adopt only one point and save the other points for another town meeting. Or you can have two motions, one for, let's say we want to do regional board of assessors. We can have that action to implement that, and that's the only thing we do. Or we could then have a second motion to implement a surcharge on the excise, the vehicle excise tax. And I can tell you all the arguments pro excise surcharge and why the legislature did it, and I can tell you the cons on it. But the point tonight is not to debate whether or not it's a good idea or not. In part, the Municipal Empowerment Act is reacting to that wonderful chart that we've seen of the pyramid. And that chart is happening with almost every community in Massachusetts. And many of the towns that I work for are actually voting to do overrides this year and are putting operating overrides before town meeting and putting ballot questions on. And so these additional revenue opportunities is the legislature's way and the governor's way of trying to tell communities who aren't in a desperate situation that they have to do an override, that here are some ways that perhaps you can make do without an override. And so when we talk about, people don't want to pay more for their fancy cars. And if you buy a really expensive car, you're going to be paying more excise tax if we adopt a motion at town meeting to do so. But is the alternative, wow, we're going to increase, and we have to do a general operating override, increase everybody's property taxes, not just the guy who's driving around in the $1 million car. It's going to affect every one of us. So, but we don't get to that debate unless you support putting at least an article on. And then we have further discussions. The board has further discussions about, do we want to do anything? And then we discuss it with advisory. Do they support anything? And if there's a consensus there to do something, then we do something. If the consensus is no, not at this time, and people think what you just said is the better way to go, then we vote no action on this article today and wait till next year and consider it less on.
Paul, can I just follow up for a
Okay,
second?
for the follow-up, but I don't want Paul to be too repetitive. Do you know what I'm trying to say? I think we get the point. I
understand.
want to make sure that we just get briefly, summarily answer these questions.
Yeah,
I'll do a follow-up, but I want to recognize Stephen and Jeff after that. Do a follow-up,
Okay.
Marianne.
I'll be very brief. It's not clear to me what article this would, how this article would sound without a long discussion about all the little points under the article. How can we, support the Municipal Empowerment Act or accept the options of the Municipal Empowerment Act of the state without getting into the details? take up the details later when we've had discussion.
And I will say that if this does get added to the warrant, I'm going to want it to be number 26. And I'm not saying that jokingly because I know I joke around a lot and Jeff's laughing, but I am going to want it to be number 26.
It's a good idea.
Or maybe before the cook. I'm not sure. I might wait.
I was timing you. You took a little longer than I thought.
Okay, Stephen, your hand is raised.
Yeah, I think I'm generally in agreement with Marion, and I'm gonna guess Jeff has a similar opinion, which is that, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff in this act, but it is so broad, and also hyper specific at the same time. I just don't see how we could possibly add this to the warrant without basically blowing both the advisory hearing and the town meeting itself just out of the water. I mean, this is guaranteed you're going to a second day if we add this. Um, and I mean, to be honest, looking at the number of different things that are there that are local options, it is the size of a full town meeting warrant itself. And to me, it almost makes more sense to have a special town meeting in the fall to tackle just this act, and go through the items one by one and figure out whether or not the town wants to adopt them. I think that honestly, I think adding it to this year's town meeting warrant at such a late stage, I mean, even having the discussion of should we be having this discussion, you'll waste hours of people's time between the select board and the public hearing and the town meeting warrant, town meeting itself, even to arrive at the no action. It'll be hours of discussion, and I think it's just a waste of time. That's not to say that the act itself is a waste of time. I think that it deserves more time and attention than we can actually give it in this upcoming town meeting.
So I'm going to put something on top of Stevens before anyone responds to it. My concern is very similar to Stevens in that I think it is a very good act, but the last minute nature of it might spoil it. So you're going to have people out there kind of opposing it, and then they'll say, "Oh, we voted that down. Well, why do we want to do that again?" I think this deserves attention because I think it should be supported. And I have a little concern with Steven said. I know someone mentioned at the last meeting that there's a cost of a special. If we put it on a fall, I promise you 4 other people are going to add more and some are going to add some articles to the fall. It's just the way it is. And if it costs $5,000 and it costs $5,000, I don't want the relatively small cost of a town meeting to spoil the good nature of these when we can vet it appropriately over the time. And that kind of taps in what Steven said. I didn't mean to bump you, Jeff, but that's kind of my concern is that I've seen it. How many times have we seen a town meeting? You put something on, people get iffy about it, and they vote it down to be safe, and I think that'll sour people on this article. You know what I mean? If they do that, even if it's a placeholder, I understand, 100% understand Paul's perspective. But as a placeholder to be safe and then talk about it. But I don't know if we get that momentum. But I'm going to recognize Jeff, and then Paul can maybe add anything at the end to address maybe all of our concerns.
Yeah, well, I mean, mine's fairly easy because I agree with both Stephen and Eric, but I would add one point is even if we did this and we discussed it somehow at advisory in town meeting, wouldn't it have to be on the election in May then too? Wouldn't you have to have the voters vote on any of those initiatives they couldn't just be town meeting votes, could they?
I don't know.
It's all rushed is really the bottom line.
The ones on revenue increases are only town meeting votes.
Okay. It just
Okay.
seems like we, would appear like we're trying to shove something down their throats would be an inarticulate way of saying it.
And that's my concern is that then people vote against it and then they're soured on it. You know what I mean? Then you come back with a special, you come back next year, they're like, "Oh, we voted on this."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, each of the points that we want to adopt is a whole discussion in itself, and we need public outreach, and a lot needs to be done.
That's it. I guess I have a sense the board. So let me ask people this. I don't know if it deserves a vote or not, but our next article is about our next agenda item, I should say, is about the warrant. If we're going to open it and add this or whatever else, and about all the articles, we're going to do a quick summary of the articles. is there a sense from this board that you might want to open the warrant article or not, and we can go there?
I would
My-
not be in favor of opening the warrant.
Okay. Hey, Paul, do you want to say anything kind of in summary? And
Yeah, I want to create a slightly different picture. The most of the Municipal Empowerment Act is going to take effect automatically without any vote at town meeting. The powers are there. The powers to do regional board of assessors is going to be granted to the town. The implementation of that power is what takes a vote of town meeting to organize or do an intermunicipal agreement or whatever we get, however way we approach it. Additional action has to be taken. But 90% of the Municipal Empowerment Act is going to take effect anyway. The local options actually are 3, 4, maybe 5 at most. And those basically have to do with the ability for the community to have additional revenue sources. Those require a vote at town meeting, and those require acceptance. But again, most of the improvements take effect automatically.
okay. Jeremy, you want to add something?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Eric. I just wanted to, should you not want to add this as a warrant article, would the board consider allowing myself, the town administrator, to send a letter of support for the act in general to your local delegation, just supporting enactment of the act, such that it's options for Sherburne in the future?
I
Sure.
certainly would support that. Anyone else? Just nods
Yeah.
of heads. Yeah. Yeah, what I read, I liked a lot. Absolutely. That's a great idea. Absolutely. All right. So with that, and we actually move on to warrant articles. Now, this will require some speed. If you don't mind, I just need 1 second because I have a very dry mouth and I just need to grab a drink of water before this next item. I'll be literally just a minute.
Well, this is our chance to appoint Eric to 100 committees.
No.
Put him to work.
Okay, so moving on, we have the actual warrant itself. Now, I swear to you, this is my 7th year on the board, and we've done this 7 different ways. So I want to keep this a little brief. I don't think there's too much controversial on this warrant. I've been thinking how to do this. We do this thing. I'm going to flip through the warrant, and I'm just going to quickly go Article 1, 2, 3. Just simply, I don't know, maybe say hold or say hold on something that you want to go back and talk a little bit, and then we'll discuss a few items. And I'd like to take maybe a mass support a vote on on uh on the majority of these items. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Agree.
Okay.
Good idea. You're basically making a consent agenda of your own, it sounds like.
I kind of, yeah. I'm basically like acting like the moderator consent type thing here. Okay.
That's how I view it.
So Article 1 reports, Article 2 supplemental appropriations, Article 3 prior year bills, Article 4 OPED, Article 5 cemeteries, Article 6 revolving funds, Article 7 stabilization funds. Article 8 is the omnibus budget. I'm just going to put a hold on that. Let's talk about that. I mean, I don't think that should just be part of a mass vote or whatever. And same thing with Article 9. I'm just gonna force us to discuss that. Article 9, just because it warrants it and it's important. Article 10, substantial equipment supplies and service purchases.
I would hold that also because to me that one sort of is along the same lines as capital.
Yeah.
They're,
one in
some
the
of them
town.
are fairly significant numbers.
Yeah. I'm gonna face sideways because if I write, I wind up hitting the keyboard when I write on my thing. Article 11, free cash. Article 12, personal property tax exemptions. 13, amend Chapter 7. Article 4, the bylaws, Traffic Safety Committee. Article 14, Sherborn 1858 house, townhouse.
Uh, should we hold that? Wait, did we had a discussion about that? I no
know.
longer recall what we, how we ended
did.
that discussion.
We did, Jeremy, one of recommended, Jeremy highlighted it. It felt like we resolved it, but hey, if anyone wants to talk about it, now's the time to do it. Do you want to hold that one?
No, if you say that we resolved it, then I believe you. I just don't remember what the
Okay.
resolution was.
Article 15, MBTA zoning. I'm just gonna hold that. It just
hold-
feels too. feels too Well, I got quite a few pages here. I'm just not using the checklist because, well, we already talked about that. Okay. Article 16 miscellaneous zoning bylaw updates. I think those are.
Hold.
No, hold that. Okay. And I apologize because again, I'm not using the checklist. Article 17, amend zoning bylaws, chapter 40, section 5.5, floodplain district. Those are always kind of administrative and long. 18, ADU regulations.
Hold.
Okay, there you go. I was waiting for you, Marion. Yeah. 19, personal administration plan, policy and outside employment. 20, prudent investment rule, MGL 44, section 54B. 21, affordable housing covenant and restriction. 22, public meeting recording bylaw.
Hold, I think.
You want to hold down? Okay.
I mean, we didn't fully discuss that, did we?
Yeah, I know it's one that we highlighted last time.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That was
I think we're in discussion, whatever else. 23, town meeting quorum. I'm not going to hold it, but I think it should be 5. Article 24, this petition on governance task force. And finally, 25, town clerk position elected to appointed. Okay.
So before we get into discussing the holds, when the veterans agent was before us and we were appointing the veterans agent, I asked the question, did he recommend that we adopt certain provisions of the HEROES Act? So there's this new state law that allows for better benefits for veterans. And there's a local option, a couple of local option provisions. The one that seems to be popular with veterans agents is 22I, which says that basically the current benefits increase by CPI every year. And some of the benefits were set so long ago, after World War II and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, some of them have been updated, but we're not talking about big dollars. I don't see that here. So I don't know what the veterans agent is recommending or not recommending on that subject, but I do know from working with veterans agents in other communities, they're all very enthusiastic, and there's apparently some kind of listserv, and they go back and forth with how this is going to be wonderful for vets and stuff like that. Shouldn't that be on the warrant? Or where are we on that?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, apologize. Our new veteran services officer has not gotten back to us on that request for that research yet. But I can certainly follow up to see what his recommendations might be.
I know, I know nothing about it, to be honest with you myself. Steven, do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably just a holdover from my time as the advisory chair, but I am generally not in favor of these sort of 11th hour additions to the town meeting warrants. For things that we have not to this point discussed, and surely advisory has not discussed and doesn't have on a future advisory meeting. I mean, on advisory, we would always have every warrant article sponsor come and present to advisory prior to the public hearing, so that one, advisory kind of knew what was going on, and two, could give some kind of feedback to the person as to any changes that might be beneficial prior to the public hearing. And anytime one of these late last minute things got thrown in, it was just chaos, and oftentimes the item did not get discussed appropriately. And basically, it's just generally a bad idea. So unless there is some, again, extenuating reason why this would have to happen in this year's town meeting as opposed to next year's, when there's more time to have ramped up and prepared for it. I am, again, generally not in favor of adding things to the warrant at this late stage.
So
Well, speaking of warrant, Mr. Dan Sichel.
Uh, Thanks, Eric. I was just going to add a little context to what Steve said. So, it's a long warrant this year. Advisories has been working hard. We had, given the number of, as Steve said, individual warrant articles that we need to hear about and discuss, we actually had to add an extra meeting. So, advisory will do whatever it needs to do to get through the warrant, but there is not a lot of slack capacity for advisory to do kind of considerate, careful analysis of additional items. I mean, as I said, advisory will do what it needs to do, but we're already kind of pushing the limits of how much the committee can thoughtfully consider.
And it sounds like we're gonna have a fall special town meeting for the municipal act anyway. So, like I said, we haven't even finished this meeting. We already added two things to a special town meeting. Um,
so if I
okay.
could just
Yeah, go ahead,
respond,
Paul.
the reason
Hmm.
I did bring it up like a month ago, number one. Number two, it's general knowledge that it's out there. But the reason for the urgency is that veterans need it. And I'm not the town's veterans agent, but I can tell you that there's a problem with suicide of veterans. There's a problem with poverty. There's a problem with medical issues, so on and so on. And these benefits are antiquated. And to not give them this benefit for a year, I mean, I'm sorry if it imposes a little bit on advisory, but to me, it's an absolute no-brainer. Uh, and those who have taken the time to look into it, everybody I've talked to sees it as a no-brainer. It's fundamentally comes down to, do you care for your veterans? I think this community does. We have a robust veterans community. We do things like Veterans Day and Memorial Day and so on. But this puts money in their pocket. And that it's tied in with state reimbursements to the town, blah, blah, blah. There's all this other aspects to it. But not giving them that benefit where other communities are just seems unkind, uncaring.
Hey Dan, when's advisory's next meeting relative to the warrant? Let's say.
We are meeting next Wednesday night, the following Wednesday night, and then the meeting we added is the night after that, which would be the Wednesday after that, which would be March 12th. And we've had meetings run to 11:30 at night. So as I said, with the length of the warrant and the number of issues that are generating a lot of discussion, there is limited capacity, I think, for additional thoughtful consideration of additional items.
I hear what Paul's saying. I understand the kind of a qualitative point of view, but not a quantitative point of view. Do you want to update the benefits? Of course you do. But is it going to be like $5 per veteran? In that case, we could wait to a special, or is it going to be like $2,000? I think those are kind of important things to decide if we're going to upset everything, is what the actual benefit is going to really mean. Some of the specifics, like Marianne talked about in the last article, like, vetting specifics and understanding and stuff like that. I think it's important. Of course, people want to support the veterans and give them maximize whatever benefit they can. But it's nice to have specifics. Passing this article will mean blank. What will it mean to the average veteran here in the city, in the town of Sherborn? What will it mean? I like the CPI, but CPI is gonna be what, like 2% or something like that? Any consumer price index, that's gonna be that. Okay, well, maybe we pass that in the fall and it won't make some sort of change. That's the type of things that, I think would be kind of compelling to know. And maybe it does require a reach out again to our um, newly appointed, or whatever it is, newly adopted veteran service.
If I could just add,
Sure. Mm.
if we adopt 22I, the CPI increase will be forever. Every year, automatically, they get an increase, just like Social Security payments. Every year, Social Security has essentially the same benefit, that it's adjusted for CPI. This would make veterans on track with the same benefits that you can get through Social Security.
Now, Trevor, but my point to that, that's one, Jim, is that so delayed 1 year means 2%. That's what it means. That's what I'm hearing means 2%. We're not going to delay it forever. We all agree this is going to happen. But I mean, just between just the last, and now I know you might not be last many, some recommended a month ago. But the point being, I think there's obviously concern on these things being added on and the uncertainty. And I always get concerned of something getting shot down. You can put in something last minute, it gets shot down. We wait 6 months to a special town meeting. Is that 1.1%? You know what I mean? If it's based on a CPI, that's why I think we want to cut. We all get what CPI means, but we're talking about a 6 month to a 1 year delay in this. That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about not passing it. It's possible trying to put it in this town meeting will kill it more than a year. That's always my first concern. That's what my concern on the last agenda item is. You put something in, people's reaction is, I know nothing about it. Vote it down. Is there any specifics, or maybe by even? I mean, next meeting is going to be short. It's going to be one right before caucus, the meeting on whatever it is, the
6th of March.
yeah, what's 6 + 7? The 13th. The meeting on the 13th would be no, it's actually at 6 + 14, isn't it? The 20th. The meeting on the 20th. That might be too late with being right before the next Saturday's advisory meeting.
Honestly, there's just not enough time.
So I would just add that from what I hear, and again, it's in other communities, the difference really matters to vets. And the amount is the CPI, not just for one benefit, but this section of the law makes it applicable to a whole list of veterans benefits. So that there's 2% of X, 2% of Y, 2% of Z, 2% of A, there's like 20 odd sections that get increased. And I have seen in other communities months ago, the finance directors have costed it out as to how much it was going to cost the community, how much the state was reimbursing, what the net cost would be, and so on and so on. And yeah, we haven't done that work because we didn't have the vet agent that could have done this for us. But why should the vet pay? I mean, these guys put their lives on the line for us.
Do you have any
Well,
specifics
if
on
I can
A,
interrupt,
Z,
Paul,
B?
I mean, as you said, Paul, you're not the veterans agent for the town, and our new veterans agent has not responded to this, and I think it's unfair to put it on him if he isn't ready for it. And so I guess what I would say, somebody needs to sponsor it. Somebody needs to do the presentation. You are championing it. So if you are volunteering to sponsor this and crunch all the numbers and present it to the select board, present it at the advisory hearing, present it at town meeting, and answer everybody's questions about it. If you were volunteering to do that, Paul, then I would support you in doing that. But if you're just saying this is a good idea and somebody else should take it and run with it, there's just not enough time, Paul.
It's the veterans agent that needs to do it.
Yeah, and I think it's not fair to put that on him if he hasn't come forward to get it ready for this year's town meeting. I mean, I think the town's veterans agent should be the one who makes the decision as to whether or not this is something that he wants to try to get onto the town meeting warrant. I don't, if
That's actually a good point, Stephen, because Jeremy, what town does he, we share him with Holliston, is that right? Or is that the energy?
Walpole and Medfield, Jeff.
Walpole and Medfield, so I'm wondering if he's already encountered this in 2 other places.
He may have,
Maybe
but
that's
I
a
know,
follow-up,
it was
maybe-
brought up. I know it was brought up when we introduced him. Was it 2 weeks? Was it your last meeting? I don't recall, but he's been in the office a couple weeks, a couple days over the last couple weeks, but has not yet, brought forward any research on it.
But he could be further along than we know if he had to do
Good.
it for those 2 towns.
I did not inquire specifically ahead of this meeting.
Even so, he would have to go through the process that Steve just outlined.
Yeah,
And
but if he's already done the financial analysis, he'd just have to transfer it to the population base of veterans in Sherborn, you know what I mean?
and explain it to everyone,
Yeah.
including select board, advisory, and the town as a whole.
Okay, let me suggest this. We're meeting on March 6th, and what is it? It'd probably be a short meeting because of caucus. How about this? If we get and this is, believe me, it goes against my better judgment, but this is important enough, as Paul's indicated. If we get detailed information from a registered agent, do we want to potentially hold a meeting on the in-between Thursday there? Again, what's 6 + 7 again? 13th. Do we want to hold a meeting on the 13th to discuss this? Paul's convinced me it's important, but let's see some details of it.
I'm going to abstain from the decision because I'll be in Cincinnati on the 12th and the 13th.
Yeah, I know. And then obviously it's going to cause a stress on advisory. They're meeting nonstop to vet all these things. But what are people's thoughts? Or maybe what's the meeting? Let me get my calendar. I mean,
Could we just ask Jeremy to contact the veterans agent and have an informal discussion and just be like, hey, this came up at the last select board meeting, and see what he thinks. And if he's like, oh yeah, I could slap this together real fast, then sure. But if he's like, oh no, that's a lot of work, why don't we do that in the fall or next spring, then we'll just, again, if it's the veteran service agent who should be the initiator of this, then we should let him decide when is the appropriate time to do it.
I like that. With a potential meeting again on the 13th, perhaps. That gives advisory 10 days before Bloody Saturday to at least consider this one article. Maybe I think that's a good way to resolve it. Jeremy, reach out to the veterans agent, see what's worth doing. We'll consider having that additional meeting. You don't have to decide now, but at least it's among discussion here. And Jeff will zoom in from Cincinnati. Which is interesting because on my selectman's report, I plan on we talked about having the 6th meeting hybrid. We're meeting in person, and I'm hoping to pretty much do hybrid from then on out. But we'll talk about that.
I think I'm going to be airborne though. I don't think I'll be dialing in.
There's internet on airplanes now.
Yeah,
there is. Absolutely. Okay, without further ado, and we went through the articles. We held on a handful of them. Do I have a motion to support the non-held articles for the town meeting.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Second,
Second. Okay. All in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
right,
Paul?
Aye.
Miriam?
I,
And I am I myself. I am I as well. I mean. Okay, so going real quick here. The first hold is an omnibus budget. I didn't have my background material. I'm not sure. We might want to make that a standalone for maybe March 20th before. Does anyone have any concerns about the budget, or do you want to make a vote on the budget? It's the only one I was thinking of not voting on tonight. I'm ready in capital and everything else, but that's the only one that was on the bus. Is there any concerns? Do you think is this board comfortable voting tonight on the budget? Or I do want to vote before Bloody Saturday,
I would
but
be
other than
okay
that,
waiting until the 20th because a lot of times there are last minute changes to various budgets prior to the public hearing. So, there's still an entire month to go before that March 20th meeting. So stuff could change.
Jeremy.
Yeah, to Steve's point, we actually just got notice from the Norfolk Aggie as far as the tuition. And we have to refine that number. So I'm sure there's going to be some other numbers that get refined. So
That's what I remember every year. I would be more comfortable waiting on this one item, to be honest with you. If no one else cares, I'm gonna go on to Article 9, the capital budget. Everyone good with that? That's not that. Okay, good enough. Okay, couple budget. Just a quick little, at least my thoughts on it. A quick summary. We have some things to talk about. A couple of the exempt items. I think to talk about that are still in flux a little bit. I just want to clarify because I'm still concerned if what I have is most recent updated warrant here. We have 9 items that are on under free cash. Is that still the case? That's good there. Okay, I
yes,
like that. A few little highlights. The roadway management was reduced to 350 because we included some work in the operational budget. Is that true?
yes.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
actually, it's because it's accounting for the additional funds received from the Commonwealth.
Okay, that's right there.
where are
I
you
still,
on roadway management now? Which one are you doing now?
I'm hitting just a couple of highlights on things and my
Yeah,
thoughts, and I'm going to open up for discussion. I wasn't go line by line. I was just doing a couple items on thoughts and things that are highlighted, and then
Oh,
I'm
okay.
opening up for discussion. That's kind of my things there.
All right,
Sometimes the line by line gets a little painful. You know what I mean? So I'm just, we'll see where this goes. If I have to rein it in, I'll rein it in or whatever. I'll
What
be honest.
page?
I'm pleased with the free cash items. I'm pleased with that. Take some of that out of it takes away from the exempt bonding that we've kind of gotten hooked on a little bit. Pleased with some reduction of a few items, the roadway management. I think that's very important. I'm a big advocate of that. You know what I mean? I did want to see what do you call it, some stuff almost transferred to the operational budget, and that's one of them, but that's another thing. I mean, I really had a couple goals in this town meeting. One was to put some stuff, to put a fair amount of items under free cash to transfer some of maybe the roadway management to operational because that's effectively an operational expense. To not put a not put a citizen petition last, and I wanted an article to change the name of Farm Pond to the Gulf of Sherborn, but that's probably not going to pass. So
Eric, I'm sorry, but I'm lost here.
okay,
I'm looking at exempt borrowing fund capital items, and there's where I find roadway management. Where are you?
it is. I'm sorry. I went to a high level and just gave a summary of things. Would it
Oh,
be better if we went line by line? I'm just giving a summary of the general article itself and things that I like in it, and things I don't, whatever else.
okay.
Would you rather if I went more linear, went line by line? We've done that in the past. It gets a little painful, but
Oh,
let's
no, that's okay. I just didn't know where you were at.
and maybe I'm just being too non-linear.
No problem.
Jeremy, raise your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to know there are a handful of projects that the Capital Budget Committee has not yet discussed and made a stand on, including the turf field and track and fencing for regional schools, the recreation, tennis and pickleball courts, and the Sherborn historical items display. Those are still open items with the Capital Budget Committee. I'm aware that those last two, number 5 and 6, the tennis and pickleball courts and the Sherborn historic items display, the numbers are likely going to change from what's presented here. The proponents are likely going to have different numbers brought forward.
That's good to know. Thank you very much. That's good to know.
So has everything else in capital been approved by the capital budget committee?
Yes.
And what about Article 10, the substantial equipment, blah, blah, blah? Did those go before capital budget?
They did, even though they're not capital items, but they
Were-
did get discussed and
And were
voted.
they all
Like
approved as well?
capital. Well, they begrudgingly, yes, they did, though they defined those as not capital and not under their purview, but yes, they did review and vet them and did vote them.
Now,
And
I do want to keep it to Article 9. So, Dan, if you're answering about the small caps, what I call small caps, Article 10, I would like to defer that and stick to 9. Are you going to answer the thing about 10?
I had something about 10, so I'll come back.
Okay, yeah. I think that's me its own piece. So, does it clarify on 9? 5 and 6, we don't think is the final price, and it's not been voted by budget. What'd you say about the turf fields? Has that been voted by advisory yet? The number one regional schools, a turf field? That is
not by
not.
capital budget committee, no. Advisory has not yet voted on any capital.
Okay. Okay.
So can
So,
we comment on that, or are we gonna wait till later? How are you running this meeting?
yeah.
Because I want
Every
to
year it's tricky.
comment on the turf field aspects.
Yeah, about Article 9, please give a comment on the turf fields, Paul.
So there's a lot of controversy on the scientific front about turf fields, on its effect on the environment and on the effect of users and athletes. And apparently there's the cheap version, which is still very expensive, and there's the more expensive version. And the more expensive version is a lot healthier. And what's not stated in this line item is what version are we going with? Is the 927,000 the healthiest that we can get? Or is it the low cost one, which is going to damage the environment, cause injuries to athletes, and so on and so on? It's not.
I could probably answer that, but Marion had her hands up first.
Yeah, I'll hear from Marianne and then Jeff. Go ahead, Marianne.
Right, I think it's worth watching the video of the school committee meeting that Jeremy sent around. I watched it. It was really, really informative. I had still a couple of comments on that amount. Actually, I think it was even a little higher in the school committee estimate, but half of that amount is actually the track, and the track is being redesigned. And I must say, in the school committee meeting video that I watched, there were a couple of things that weren't clear to me. I should say the landscape architect who presented it made a good case for turf field. Even though, we all worry about plastic microparticles and all that. At this point, there's already a turf field there, and to reconstitute a grass field would be much more expensive than this, actually, and over time. They do plan to put in a good quality turf field, according to the video. Half of the amount that was budgeted, though, is for not only resurfacing, but actually redesigning the track, making it, the track has more surface area, put it that way, in the new design. And in my view, it wasn't clearly enough explained why that needs to happen. And also, the big question environmentally is, can the old turf field be recycled? And up until recently, the only place that was recycling, bona fide recycling, was in Holland. And now apparently the architect said there's a new facility coming online somewhere in the East Coast. I forget where it is, but it's not online yet. But he said it's going to be available sometime sometime this year. But I would want to know more about that, because turf field detritus, old turf fields are famous for being, kind of thrown in landfills or piled up in the countryside. and they're very hard to recycle, in fact. So I think we should learn more about that. But
All right, I'd like
maybe,
oh, sorry.
yeah,
Sorry, man.
go
I'd
ahead.
like Jeff and then Steve. I know Jeff doesn't hand raised, but he did speak up. So
Well,
Jeff and
the couple things, I agree with everything Marion said, and I'm not convinced that there is a safe turf field, artificial turf field. But the point about it being already a turf location is important. But we're required to have it disposed of properly, and just like asbestos, it's cradle to grave. The town is still on the hook if that is, you know, somehow exposed in whatever location it's disposed of. You have to have, you know, documentation all the way to the final resting place and have, you know, any kind of material safety data sheets and everything else.
And in the budget, there was nothing listed for the recycling cost.
It's usually, they probably, it's integrated with the bid, I would think. Usually they would, it's usually the installer that
Oh,
handles it
perhaps.
also. So it may just be a line item in their bid to, this is definitely the higher end model, I know, because Roger Marino bought the first field in 2008 for $1 million total cost, and this is just Sherborn's share of the cost. So this must be around 2.5 million or 2.4 million in total cost, I would guess.
Well, the turf field itself is it's around 400 to 500,000.
Yeah, but he donated the track then too. Not as fancy as this one, but it's a tartan. It's called a tartan surface. It's a rubber surface track that was
Right.
included in what was installed in 2008. And he just donated the money to the Dover Sherborn boosters is how it was done. So that was one of my questions. Is this project being run by the town of Dover or by the Dover Sherborn boosters?
I am going to interrupt here before I recognize Stephen.
Okay.
So I wrote a letter myself to advisory on this here. I'm only going to support this if the ultimate town meeting price is based on a bid price. They did say, I believe, and someone correct me, and that they committed to go to bid, get a bid number, and that's what goes to town meeting. So if I support this, it's actually not going to be for 527,000. It's going to be based on an actual bid number. I think it's important because, frankly, I gotta be honest, it started low, and then they kind of screwed up some other capital stuff, and then it went real high. And there's a huge contingency in there that makes me very uneasy. All these other questions people have kind of add to that disposal, everything else. Put it in the bid, get a bid price. That's what town meeting votes on. So that's what I want to say. And to move this along, I want to recognize Stephen.
Yeah, I'm just trying to kick the can down the road. Are are we getting a presentation from the region or whoever's in charge of this project? Because we have too many questions, right? I think that there's too many questions among various board members for us to make an informed vote on this tonight. So I had been under the impression that we were going to try to have the region present this project to the select board, but I don't, is that going to happen or is it not?
Or maybe I'll interrupt there. Maybe for Dan. Hi, Dan. Are they going to present on Bloody Saturday? Because one of the things that I'm thinking is a couple of these capital items, we simply do vote with advisory. We go to advisory at almost everything voted on. But if we go to that Saturday, see a presentation, whatever, have again, dialogue, the select board has a dialogue on a few short items, that's not the worst thing in the world. It might be an efficient way to do that.
I'd be fine with that. And there will be a presentation. It'll be a 5-minute presentation. It won't be, but with time for questions and follow-up.
Yeah, I would be in favor of punting our vote on this until the public hearing then.
And without going into huge discussion, what do people think about punting on items 1, 5, and 6? Because I know there's some items in those. If you want to discuss them now, we can. But what are thoughts on items 1, 5, and 6?
Yeah, I'd be in favor of that, punting all three of them.
Marion, you had a question?
I would, but I'm concerned about at least a couple of them that there's still a lot of discussion to be had. And I'm a little worried about punting all of that to Bloody Friday, but Bloody Saturday.
Well, the numbers are up in the air because you were there too, I think, but I've been working with the historic preservation. They've already raised some money actually that they're putting towards it, but these numbers for the pickleball courts and the historical museum aren't final, as Eric indicated.
Yeah.
So
And
that's another reason to delay it, because we can't even vote on this because we don't know what the real number is.
Yeah, I'm in favor of delaying it. I'm just worried about Bloody Saturday.
I suspect that and I'll recognize Paul in a second. I suspect that there'll be a fair amount of this. So I've been kind of keeping in tune and talking to Dan about all these items. The items 1, 5, and 6 will be discussion anyway. Do you know what I mean? I don't think
Okay.
our little discussion is going to blow it up. You know what I mean? I think there's going to be a fair amount of discussion on those items anyway. Um, Even people reaching out to me, it's really been about really those items, people, individuals reaching out to me.
Right.
Paul, you have a question, comment? Mhm.
Yes, I mean, I support the idea of deferring the vote, number one. Number two, I support replacing the turf field. But I have a different approach as to how I want to handle. What I want is that the town vote to approve this kind of appropriation have restrictions in it that protect the environment, so that we tell the region, you can go ahead and do this, but it has to meet these criteria, and that they're binding. What I don't want to do is to simply have an appropriation of 927,000, and then they get the same amount from Dover. They've got 2 million and something to spend on anything, and they then make a decision that may not be in the best interests of the environment or the public health. I think
So
there needs to be a little more control over that decision than just having this one line here in this warrant. It may be even worth having it as a separate warrant article, where you can have a lengthier motion that says, vote that we recommend a vote yes, provided that, or subject to the following conditions, A, B, C, D, E, rather than the way this is set up, that the only
I
thing
guess
that's being voted is a dollar amount.
So I guess my recommendation is I just watch that video. I understand there's some stuff in there about the environment. Think about how to propose it. When you meet on Saturday, you can propose something along those lines and talk to the actual regional committee itself and answer those questions. I think there's a level of details which we clearly don't know. And I think that should be vetted at that point. It makes sense, but it's a very specific level of detail. And you're right, I don't see a way of doing it outside of a standalone. I don't see it going in this table saying like turf field, provided it's good for the environment, or I think it has to be a bit more specific. I don't know how it's worded, and maybe you can come up with some kind of wording by the time we actually meet on Saturday, to be honest with you, because I think that's gonna be hard. I don't see it spanning like without leaching PFAS or something like that. I don't That's tough. So without beating up this discussion right here, I think it's safe to say we're going to defer these items, at least to that vote. Let's put a placeholder on the 20th just to talk about any new information on this. If we don't get new information, that's fine. I don't want to have a repetitive conversation, but at least it'll be something to talk about on the 20th. I'm going to try to keep the conversation going. Next, items 2, 3, and 4.
I have a comment on 4.
Okay. Anyone else have questions on 2, 3, and 4? And Paul will talk about 4. Okay. Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
So the Chapter 90 recovery for the town this year is being increased statewide. The amount being appropriated is going from 200 million to 300 million. And Mara Healy has made a lot of speeches about how wonderful that is to all the communities and blah, 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 blah. But given the increase, if there's an increase, I would suggest reducing the 350 by the amount of the increase. So the net dollars are the same, but that increase that comes from the state be used to lessen the impact on the taxpayers.
In fact, there's 2 increases: a 50% Chapter 90, and there's a millionaire's tax. And I do know we dropped it 50 grand from the previous year. I guess, Jeremy, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that. Do you know what that amount is if we increase our Chapter 90 50% and we add the millionaire's tax? What
Yeah,
that net increase is?
yeah. So that the $350,000 number, that is the net out from the need that was presented, that nets out both the millionaire's tax and the rural roadway funds and Chapter 90. So those three sources. Um, that's how the 350 was arrived at. So the 350 already assumes the millionaire's tax. The
Oh, I got it. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so the 50% increase in Chapter 90 is not included in that 350. So that would be about $100,000.
So it nets it out based on 500, not 400. I just do want to clarify that. Because I know the pavement management study said it should go 5 and then higher and up to 1 million. And I don't support that level of increase. I don't want to throw shade on the management. I liked it, but there were some fluffy numbers in there that I don't fully support those super increases. I don't think you'll ever get $1 million 2 years from now, whatever it was. But just to make sure that everyone knows, it offsets it based on 500,000, correct?
What do you mean offsets what?
So the increase we have for
Yep.
Chapter 90 rural and millionaires tax offsets our request based on a $500,000 request, not a $400,000 request. It
Yes,
basically is
it's a higher. Yes.
150,000 additional. So it is 100,000 net more than last year. Well,
Yes.
last year we had the millionaires, but whatever.
Yep.
To me, it's enough in the gray that I'm okay with it. And you know me, I hate spending money. That I still support it. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that because it is less than previous years.
Well, I thought I just heard, if I could just clarify what Jeremy said. I thought Jeremy just said that the increase from 200 million to 300 million is not netted out in this number.
That's correct. Yes. This number assumes the $200 million number of
Okay.
Chapter 90 funding, not
So,
the increased. Yeah.
so if we're going to get another 100,000, why shouldn't this number be 250,000? The total is still going to be the 500,000 from all sources,
Mhm.
and it saves the taxpayer 100 grand.
Yeah, my only caveat to that is that, the raising Chapter 90 has been discussed for many years and has not yet happened. It's been stagnant at 200 million for years. So I'm optimistic. I guess we're all optimistic it's going to happen this year, that it's going to go up. But it hasn't in the past. And I believe it's also proposed to be a multi-year bill, which is great. That gives us a lot more certainty in receiving the Chapter 90 funds. So all
You
great
know,
proposals by the administration.
when would we know for sure what the actual Chapter 90 funding would be for the town? Would it be before
Boy.
town?
It
If
should be.
it's, yeah, I mean, it should be, but in years past, it's been after town meeting in some cases. It can
I
happen
would
quite
propose
late.
that we just leave it at this number, and if we find out before town meeting that for sure we are getting $100,000 more, then somebody could propose that number at town meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with this number. I'll even consider a 300 if someone wanted to do a compromise, but you know me, I cut everything. So if people want to keep it here, I'm fine with that as well.
Well, if
Any
you're
other
willing to go
thoughts?
to 300, I can make that motion.
What do people think about 300?
I
All right.
mean, I would support reducing it. I'm vaguely uncomfortable with making that decision without Sean here, but I mean, I think he would probably go along with it, but I do like to hear his input on stuff like this.
You probably said I missed it. When do we know that if they get 3 million, 300 million versus 200 million?
Whenever they pass the bond bill, but in years past, it's been unknown at town meeting. But it's been assumed that you'd receive the same level of funding.
All
I
right,
know
Marion.
Sean does have a list of streets that he'd love to tackle. So,
And I know if I vote for 300, mine's the first one that's going to come off.
Well, you know that.
but I believe if you went with 300, I'm sure we can accomplish essentially the same number of roadways.
Marion? Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, what Jeremy just said sort of threw my comment out the window. I was going to say uh, to leave it at 350, and if you end up with extra, I mean, you could even put a caveat in there. Uh, do- if the bond bill, ends up giving us an extra 100,000, that could be reduced, or there's savings during the year. I mean, we can discuss it with Sean, but I think there's a way not to have to reduce this to 300 without Sean being here and at
Yeah.
least having a chance to defend himself.
And he will want the money. I get it. And he makes good use of the money. He does. But sometimes we have to make, the hard decisions. And Jeff, I'll hear what you have to say.
Yeah, more or less similar to what Marianne said, is he doesn't have to spend this money. In other words, if we authorize 350 and we get more chapter 90, then, we can just not spend it all.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Well, I don't know.
It's just not.
Yeah, I mean, it would
Jeremy,
likely get spent. It may
not
not.
reports to Jeremy though.
It may get spent in the next year, so maybe it would offset the amount requested in 2 years out.
I get that.
Yeah.
All right. I'm torn on this one here. I am. I don't know. Just thinking. I know it's only 50. I shouldn't say only, but you know what I
We're
mean.
considering a lot of ones. We could just handle this one on the advisory hearing too. We might have a final number then. I
Maybe
don't
not advisory. Let's handle this one on the 20th. Let's put this one on the 20th.
Okay, that's
I'd like to
good.
do that. I've done
Yeah,
20th.
that's a good idea.
Okay, now we haven't accomplished anything. 2 and 3. Everyone good with number 2 and 3? I'm just gonna go on because I just don't want to. I think 2 might even be based on a real quote too, which helps a lot, helps quite a bit. Okay, free cash items. Just looking at them 1 through 9. Is there anything people want to highlight, talk about?
I have a concern about 9.
Recreation, Laurel Fields, robotic mowers. Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my understanding is that there is uh, some question about the implementation of the robotic field mowers. One of the issues being that there needs to be power at the lower at well wherever the robotic mowers are operating, there needs to be power. Um,
that's right.
and I don't believe that there is a plan to have power out there.
But
Uh,
from what I've heard, unless, and I'll recognize you in a second, Jeff. I have been hearing about this behind the scenes. You're right, and or offline. And unless I think recreation makes a strong, we could defer it, or unless they make a strong argument. I'm inclined to eliminate it. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think I have the power to make this happen out there. I've only heard it secondhand, not directly from recreation. But you're right. I would not support this on this item right now. Jeff.
Yeah, similar. We had the same issue when we wanted to buy a truck to clean out the storm drains. You're better off getting a vendor that will do the mowing for you, that they spend the money to get the robotic mowers if they're really worth getting. But
Yeah.
we don't necessarily have to in-house everything. So we saved, I forget the year, it was like $250,000 on a truck to clean out the storm drains, and we were only using it like 4 times a year, and we got a vendor to do it. So this may be an example of letting the vendor buy the equipment.
Yeah, and let's kick it to 20th, but let's get some detail about the power. I almost certainly will get killed. I'm very what I've heard about it. Give some recreation a chance maybe to touch base with Jeremy, but I'm quite certain that they'll probably get killed. So with that, do I have a motion relative to the exempt borrowing items number 2 and 3 and free cash items number 1 through 8?
Move.
Move approval.
Okay, I think Stephen won that race, so I think I'll give Paul the second on that one. Okay, all in favor, Stephen,
All right.
Jeff,
All right.
Paul,
Aye.
Marianne.
Aye.
All right, moving on to item number 10. I think there's some discussion here. Substantial equipment supplies and service purchases. I call this small caps because that's just kind of a term that I'm used to. But call it what you want. It's kind of small capital purchases. Yeah, Jeremy, please go ahead.
Yeah, on these, Yeah, items 1, 2, and 3 were discussed at the capital budget committee, even though they don't define these as capital items. They did discuss those three and did vote to support them. Item number 4 is a more recent request that the capital budget committee has not yet discussed.
All right. Any items and any other questions or comments here on the board on those 4 items?
Um, I I would defer item 4 until at least capital budget has reviewed it. I think there's some question as to what is this? Why is it necessary? What would happen if this didn't happen this year? And I feel like those are a lot of the questions that capital budget will vet.
Okay, Marion, I agree by the way, but Marion.
All right, I'm always in support of the planning board, but I do have a question about 3. As Jeremy and others know, we've been talking a lot about, sort of a more town-wide improvement of our mapping technologies. And so I know that it's needed, but I'm not sure whether how much of this money is going to go into that, some sort of mapping consultant initiative, and how much is going into the bylaw review. And I'd like to know more about how what's the hire that they want to make, a consultant for a bylaw review? What kind of person are they looking for exactly? And how would that be done? I would just like to know more about that. And of course, I could call my friends on planning board and ask them, but I think we all should know how that's going to be done. Maybe Jeremy knows more about it.
Yeah, I can relay what I know. I'm happy to invite Heidi to give you more detail, but I believe most of this effort would be a combination of a planning consultant that would help review the bylaws and some legal support. There is a mapping component that's related to the mapping, the GIS mapping of the zones, in the zoning bylaw, but so that it's a small component of the money related to GIS.
And I see Heidi's here, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say Heidi mistakenly turned her camera on, so we have to call on her.
Thanks. I figured I'll chime in if need be. It's a good educational moment here. So this came about when going through and with Chris Caney and I, there are many parts of our zoning bylaws that seem to have been done in silos. They'll refer to certain sections that are no longer valid, or something with our farm events refers to our business general, which it doesn't really apply. So we were coming up with so many of these different inconsistencies. And then the fact that the maps, we do not have overlay district maps available. Our last zoning maps seem to have been done in 2014. I've talked to 2 different consultants, and this is something other towns have done as well. The range is from like $60,000 to $100,000, where you have a planning consultant that reviews your zoning bylaws, and then there's a legal component as well that goes over and makes sure that whatever these proposed changes are, they're consistent with the state laws. So of the 75, we're still going to try and look for some grants, but the majority, at least 60,000, would probably go towards doing the zoning bylaw review portions. And then the other 15 would be for the mapping of the zoning components, the overlay districts that we really need to move past 2014.
Okay, understandable. Would some of this money actually pay for legal review? Do you know what I mean? So like you can actually pay our town council with capital funds. I've done that before if it goes specific to a capital project. Is any of the 75,000 allocated for our legal review?
We're hoping to. I've asked them for a quote, and I never did get a quote back on what their portion would be. So one of the consultants says, I'm still going to see if there's any way of getting a grant to help cover this in case there's some component that would go over it. But this seems to be what some other towns have been comfortable with covering their review.
Okay. Okay. Any other question? Marion?
Well, I will say just in support that this is really needed. I mean,
Mm.
our
Yeah.
bylaws really need a hard look, and Heidi knows that. I've known that too. And it's a big job, so.
It is, and there's just never a good time to do it. And it's not an operating expense item that you can put. You can't really do this over periods of years because this is part of the problem. We've done our bylaws over periods of years, and it would be nice to get a cleaned up version that we can kind of move forward with. So we're hoping for a free cash ask.
So I agree and I support this. I'll say that.
Okay, thank you.
I certainly say that. I mean, I'm willing to support items 1, 2, and 3 and defer 4. I think it makes sense. I agree with them. Any motions relative along those lines?
Move to support.
1, 2, and 3 without 4? Okay.
No, all 4.
Okay. I'll probably vote against that because I thought
I'm
someone
also
thought it
going
was,
to vote against
I
that.
wonder if we should defer 4 till we know more, Paul.
Yeah.
All right, then I'll do 1 through 3.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor, Stephen,
Aye.
Jeff,
All right.
Paul,
Aye.
and Marion?
Aye.
Okay. So moving on. iPhone 4 should turn their camera on again. Men's zoning bylaws, MBTA 3A zoning. Mary and I went to the public hearing on this. And let me tell you, it's controversial in every community. I think largely because of understanding. It is what it is. Um, maybe, how you give a quick comment on this. I mean, this is modifying the MBTA zoning. I don't want to get, I shouldn't say, I will get into whatever detail we need to get into it on. Sherborn being an abutting community and below a certain size, there's actually kind of minimal that we need to kind of rezone, and it's this was very well vetted. I was at the workshop hearing. I was at the public hearing about this. The planning board, I thought, did an excellent survey with this and did a townwide survey, got a lot of input on it. It's going to be polarizing. Some people are going to like it, some people aren't going to like it. And I'll be honest, there's an aspect to it I don't like, but I'm going to vote for it. I'm going to vote for it because the planning board vetted it. And I thought the town spoke well that even if I disagree with an aspect of it, I think it still reflects, I think, a good portion of what the community wants. Actually, let me hear from Stephen.
Yeah, I think I did not attend or watch the public hearing. I do have, I think, a pretty, basic but adequate understanding of MBTA zoning in general. I guess my question would be more, and Heidi, maybe you can answer this, or Marion and Eric, the people who are strongly opposed to this, what is the basis of their opposition and what is the alternative that they would propose?
I could answer that if you want, since I'm fielding the phone calls and the emails. So you do tend to hear more from the opposition than from the people that are accepting it. The opposition I kind of hear has been mainly out of 2 camps. One is we don't want the state to tell us what to do. They just don't like this because this is a state mandate that we have to do housing, and they don't feel the state should have to require us to do that. Same camp that doesn't like 40Bs. The other aspect that I'm hearing from, and it's mainly from the community outlets right across from there, they feel that it's too much traffic or people don't want it up in their neighborhood, that they want it in another part of town. And when you talk to them about where they would see it, well, any other part of town, because it's going to cause too much traffic here. Sherborn is a drive through town for the most part to get places. Any place we put this, there is going to be traffic generated. So those are the main oppositions I've been hearing. When we did the survey, there was 141 responses, and the majority of people really, spoke and said they would like to put it close to transportation, close to infrastructure. The different parcels, we had about 8 that we looked at in town, and this one really checked off all the boxes. We were also asked, have we talked to the people that own the property, which we have. It's owned in a trust, and they do not oppose this. Of the parcel that's being zoned, it's 21 acres. Our proposal is that we will allow only 1 6-acre portion to be developed under this MOD. So it's actually a small portion that that owner can still use a good part of their land in other uses as well. They don't even have to choose this if they want to develop differently. I mean, if someone wanted to put a 40B there, doesn't matter that it's 3A, they're going to do a 40B. They can still also choose to keep it a farm. They can do single family homes. This is only an overlay district. So I think what the planning board came up with was a very good solution for the town. It was not in the historic district, which that was one of the concerns we had when initially it was proposed to be in the business district downtown, that the historic area was a concern for people. So this may not be a solution that the town necessarily wants, but it's a fair solution given what the town is asked to do. On the other side, I've had someone come saying, "Oh, we're not afraid of lawsuits," and I was like, "Great," because it's going to cost money. Milton just went through this, and it was about up to $300,000 for their attorney's costs. We stand to lose grants that we've gotten. We had gotten $500,000 from the STRAP grant, and $339 for the One Stop for Growth for the Rotary. Those are the type of funds we would not be eligible for. They are telling communities if they're not compliant, if they're applying for grants right now, grants are going to compliant communities first. If there's any extra funds, they'll look at the non-compliant ones. But there are some economic factors for Sherborn that would be sad to see if we did not approve this.
All right, Marion?
Right, I'm strongly in support of this. The town really has to do this, there's no question. And I called a hold only because I wanted to ask, and I'm glad Heidi's here because I can ask her too. There are points in this that I thought the language was not clear. And there are a couple of places where there's terms used but not defined. And so my only reason to hold it is to ask if, without opening the warrant again, can small changes be made in the text? And I'd be happy to work with Heidi on this or anyone on planning board.
We could. It's just this has already been submitted for the pre-approval with the EOHLC, which they did pre-approve this, and the Attorney General's office also did a review for us and gave us a preliminary approval on the bylaw.
Okay,
So I think we can look at I'm happy to talk to you and see what the changes are that you're proposing. But
right. They're relatively small, but I think,
yeah.
I was at the hearings, but I didn't have, or the public didn't have the full text at the hearings. So we really couldn't see the detail of what was being proposed. So, yeah, if you don't mind, Heidi,
No.
I'd like to look at it with you and just
Sure.
see if we can clean it up a little bit here and there.
Sure.
Paul, hand raised.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that we did have another alternative, which was soundly supported by town meeting, which was a home rule petition to the legislature asking us to be removed from the MBTA district and from the classification of being an adjoining community. We never filed that with the general court, but it's out there and has been approved by the voters.
Do you think they'll pass? Wouldn't all the towns pretty much want to be exempt from this? You know what I'm trying to say? Think that'd pass the general court realistically?
Well, Sherborn is in a different situation than other communities. I mean, for example, you compare Sherborn with Framingham. Framingham has a train. It goes right to Framingham. We are actually members of the Metro West Regional Transit Authority. We tried a bus through here. And at the time we were added to the MBTA district, we had a bus that was sponsored by the MBTA, but the bus failed and was discontinued. And we have no service at all. So being part of this district, and I believe we get assessed annually by the MBTA for the cost of being in the district. So there's a lot of reasons why we're different than other communities. And why
Are we
it's,
though, compared to other abutting communities? I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are a lot of small communities that abut the major communities that are on the commuter rail. Here's my only concern. Sure, I'd love to be exempt. I would, but would it really pass the general court? Does Brookline care that Sherborn has whatever? When a lot of communities want to get out of this, I just don't. I'm just questioning like how realistic the passing of it is. And I'll say something. Okay, I'll say what I was going to say at the end now. There is effectively a way out of this, basically. You don't do this parcel. This parcel, without question, is number one for meeting the intent of the 3A. It abuts the Framingham line with a sidewalk that's a walk to the West Natick commuter rail. Literally, people who live here can walk there. It's about to have a water line right past it. It probably can be built. In every way, it's probably the most plausible parcel to be developed that meets the intent of it. However, if you want to actually comply but not develop anything, you allocate a parcel that's already developed. You can do that. That's people's out of this. That's every community can get out of this just by saying, you can almost do like the, I don't know, you could do like Whitney Street, 40B. Or you could do anything like that. You can take a parcel that's more than 6 acres, and you can just say that's it. And if it's developed, and no one's going to tear down the homes and build this MBTA. This not, you know what I mean? So there is a backdoor way out of this. This community chose not to do that and to meet the intent of it. I think that's the real focus of the support or not support in this. You know what I mean? Where and I don't know enough about the general court. I'm sure Paul knows me. I've only been before him a couple times, and it's and I don't know the politics of like this perceived wealthy small community doesn't want to comply, let's make a special legislation. I don't know how popular that'll be, but you can get out of this by zoning an already developed parcel. You can do that. It's effectively just not even it really is the back door out of this. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that. That's kind of what I liked, but I felt that this got supported. I'm willing to vote for it. I felt it was vetted well enough.
We did have that, what we called long-range planning on Southfield. And that was one of the parcels presented, but the majority of people voted in our survey that they'd rather have something that could realistically be built.
Yeah, I was outvoted. I know.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
why I'm voting for it now because I think it's the will of the community.
yeah.
Any other discussion? Miriam?
Well, I suspect, I don't know, but we don't know what's going to happen in the future to this bill. It may be in the future that the state will decide, hey, wait a minute, communities can't get out of this through a back door. And I would be surprised if the state law weren't revised to actually close that back door. So, and then we'd be back right where we started. So, and perhaps losing grants that we might otherwise have gotten. So I think
Do-
I'm in favor of
I
this.
think the back doors introduced me. I don't know. Whatever. Either way, we have what we have. We have it here in front of us. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on Paul's kind of do the special legislation, but I think that would get processed, would be non-compliant probably for a year or so while that passed. I
no,
personally,
I'm suggesting doing both. I didn't say,
oh, okay. I could do it in parallel, maybe.
you don't lose anything by filing the legislation.
All right,
If
we
it
can still do
doesn't
that.
pass, it doesn't pass. If it passes, then
We have
you're out.
authorization for that. All right, let's gather a vote about this one here specifically, Article 15. Any motions relative to Article 15
I move to approve it.
or to support, I guess. Anyone
Support
else?
it.
Yeah.
Second.
All right, all in favor, Stephen?
I
Jeff? Did you say I, Jeff? Because you were kind of muted.
yeah, you're muted, Jeff.
No, I got it.
I said unmute.
Okay. Paul?
Aye.
Marion?
I
Might as well. And Heidi, I applaud you, by the way. Don't run away. We got more zoning stuff. I applaud you on this, on getting this through. I think this was a challenge. I attended a lot of the meetings, and I suspect it'll be a point of controversy at on town meeting. Which I'm gonna bring one more thing about it. Does anyone want to take this one, put this one in a different order on the warrant? It's gonna have the most discussion. It probably will have some most attendance. We put the clerk at the end. If it's fair to put this one at the end or put it later on. People might leave during it. Any thoughts on changing this, the order of this on the warrant?
Well, here's my thought from the perspective of attending 1,200 town meetings, actually 1,274.
You seriously counted. I got to interrupt. You seriously had to.
Yeah, I keep track of them.
That's impressive. That's impressive.
Because that's how I know where I can find the files is by the number.
Okay.
What was I going to say? Oh,
The order,
the,
the order.
the order,
of the
yes.
warrant.
Right now, we're on track to have 2 nights of town meeting. The zoning stuff, there's so much zoning and it's so complicated that it's likely to go 2 nights. And if it's going to go 2 nights, the business about what's the last article, you're talking, there's a good risk that the last article on this warrant is going to be on the second night of town meeting and not the first night of town meeting. So here we have this lengthy thing. My experience with people attending town meetings and listening to zoning is they're bored. And they hate it when lawyers get up and start saying, well, what about this word here? And what does that do to my client and all that kind of stuff? It just drives everybody crazy. And so A, people leave, or B, they vote hurriedly, either turn it down or to adopt it without really knowing what they're doing. They just want to end it. One person told me doing zoning is like watching paint dry.
So let me interrupt you. So it could go to 2 meetings. I want to make sure we get a quorum for the second night. What's essentially of interest toward the end of this? The clerk is of interest. How about Article 21, the Affordable Housing Covenant? Is that enough interest that we'll get a quorum on the second night? Should I move this, we move this to later on to get that
Yes.
second night quorum?
Yes.
Okay, where do you want to put, what are your thoughts on putting Article 16? Maybe not at the very end, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on where to place it to make sure we get the quorum the second night and we
Well,
don't
to
lose?
support what you had said before, you wanted an ending article that was not a citizen petition.
Yeah,
This would be a good ending article because whether it's 1 day or 2 days, there will be interest in this article and people will hang around for it.
Any thoughts on moving this to the end?
I'd support it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry that you're not going to go to bed like.
I don't know. I have no way. I think they might just zone out and not come. They might. I don't know.
I'll wait till.
Yeah, go ahead, Marion.
Okay. I'm thinking about how people get burned out very fast at town meeting. Their attention span goes to heck once you're past a certain point. And there are Heidi, you're still here, right? There are 4. You have 4 town meeting articles, town planning board articles. At least 2 of them could create a lot of discussion. One for sure, the MBTA zoning. The other possibly the ADU regulations.
Yeah, I don't see that one creating much.
Maybe not. I mean, we're just
Yeah.
complying with the state there.
Right. I actually think that's going to end up more of a housekeeping type one.
Yeah, that could be, although that's another one that I'd like to sit down with you to go over the wording, or because I think there's a little bit of maybe ambiguity between the ADU and the duplex. So I think that needs to be somehow separated out more clearly. But yeah, if the 3A zoning ended up all by itself on a second night, would people come? Would we get well, if the quorum is 50, I think we're going to get it just with our boards and committees, but
Let me add some of my thought on that, 'cause that might go on. Based on my experience at town meeting, if something like this controversial is at the end or the next night, I suspect the opponents are more strongly gonna like sit it out and do whatever than some of the passive supporters. I bet you has a
uh,
less chance of passing. Now, keep in mind, zoning only requires 50-50. So the state made that rule where you don't need a two-thirds anymore. You don't need a supermajority. It's straight majority to approve this. So it doesn't have that high a bar. But the people who are dead set against it are likely gonna just stick it out and actually and get the votes on there if that affects our opinion here. Jackie? And you're muted.
in the interim, Eric, yes, that's a very good.
Sorry, I just wanted to remind everyone, I heard the mention about the quorum being 50. It's not, it's 100.
It's
I know.
100. Oh, yeah, not 50 yet.
No,
That's
we
right.
mentioned 50 as part of the actual article. No, it won't be 50 to the passing of town meeting, and then maybe some period after that.
Correct.
We close town meeting first night and somehow, but no, yeah, no, it doesn't become effective. Yeah, that's my concern, is that it's 100 right now. And I wanted to maintain that 100, which is why I like putting the hot articles toward the end. We've talked about that. But there's a good point that this may not pass if it's toward the end. Or the naysayers are gonna wait out. Let me look at the checklist one more time, then maybe let's move on with this. And after that. So number 21, the Affordable Housing Covenant, is that gonna be hot at all? Affordable Housing Covenant?
Not really. We're required to do it.
All right.
We don't really have a choice.
MBTA is number 15. How if we make it like, how late is if it's between like number 21 and 22? Is that too late for people, you think? Is that gonna hurt the article? Naturally, or people's thoughts on that, where it's kind of late enough, and then they're gonna see the light at the end of the tunnel for the rest of him. It might wind up in night two. Would it be early in night two then? Fine, then it's early in night two. Maybe it's not that big a deal and people have shown up.
This might seem like a weird question, but do we want to have the zoning articles on one spot? So if someone's coming for a zoning article, we have whatever Mary had said, three or
Or
four zoning articles.
Yeah, so maybe we don't want them in one article because we don't want people to show up and then leave. That's kind of the whole point. People like
Yeah,
remember the first turf field 1.0?
yeah.
Went from went from like 900 to like 75
Yeah.
or something
That
like
was
that.
not good.
They're all texting each other when to show up and stuff like that.
That was the one in the DPW garage.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
so I'm just wondering if whichever we do, that we put the zoning articles in a row like they are now here in the same, whatever night it is, so that if people want to show up for zoning, they probably want to have a say on all four.
Well, and my goal is to not put them together because I want people to show up for zoning and have to be there for the rest of it. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. But if they,
I'm saying the opposite. I hate to say
I know
this.
you are. I know. I
This is
get
a
it, but
recorded
could
meeting.
backfire. Your
I'm
idea
not
could
looking to make it
backfire.
convenient for people who want to show up and leave town meeting. I'm not looking to make that convenience. I'm looking to force people to show up and have a quorum and stuff like that. Okay, shoot me down. Do you want to make it after number 21 or not? Does someone say something? Otherwise, I'm gonna make a motion to do that.
Say what you're proposing.
Okay, I propose that we move this to I guess you'd call it the new number 21 between the Affordable Housing Covenant and the Public Recording Bylaw. Any thoughts?
um,
That's my
Sure.
motion. Do I have a second?
Sure, I'll second
I'm
it.
gonna wrap this up. We've got 3 more articles to talk about. All right, all in favor. Stephen,
Yeah, aye.
Jeff,
Yeah, I'll say aye, but I'm still wondering if the town clerk should be last. You think people will turn up for that one?
yeah, I
think
do.
we might want to. I'll support whatever you moved here, but I'm thinking we might need a different one last because
You want to make this one last, but it'll be hard. I don't want to play politics. But I do want to
I don't know the
wrap
answer.
up
But
this
I don't
order.
think the town clerk. I don't think people are going to get that excited about making the town clerk
I
appointed.
bet you they will.
Yeah, people always get excited at any time something is going from elected to
Yeah,
appointed.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
All right, so we
Right.
have two ayes, motion and a second is on the table. Paul, moving this number 21.
I want to move the town clerk one to day one, when we have the biggest attendance. Because if you save that to the end, only those with agendas and committed opinions, and it should be something that decided by a more representative group. So I have no problem with moving this article to the zoning one to later, but I agree with what uh, was just said by Jeff.
Okay, well, that's a separate one. So your yay, your aye on this here. Marion,
Would you repeat exactly what you're proposing?
moving the 3A article to number 21, moving it after the Affordable Housing Trust.
The MBTA Communities Act
Correct,
to,
yep.
yeah,
Okay.
15 to
So
21.
be it.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Let's go through these other three, and I'm going to circle around because it is 9 o'clock. I'm going to circle around to Paul's issue about the order of the clerk article there. Okay, we supported and we moved the 3A miscellaneous zoning bylaw updates. I think Marion, you held on that one, or someone?
Yeah, that was a hold very much like my last hold. I see, I don't know if Heidi's still here. Yeah, that's put forth as, I'm getting a feedback.
Yeah, so am I. I gotta see when you talk. I see who else is lighting up.
Uh,
Say
that,
I think it was Heidi.
okay.
I think it is Heidi. Anyway, that's put forth as housekeeping updates. But in fact, there's stuff in there that I think people may, if they actually read it, they're going to say, oh, wait a minute, this isn't just an update. Schedule of use regulations. There's quite a lot of stuff in here that I think could raise some people's worries about this or that. And it's a very complicated article. It covers a lot of different parts of the zoning bylaw, and it's really kind of hard to understand, actually, unless you've been studying it. And I already have been studying it, and there are parts of it that I find confusing. And I'm happy to work with Heidi to try to make it a little clearer. But I think that people are going to ask questions about that are going to take time to explain and answer. So that's not something, I think the miscellaneous zoning bylaw updates could turn out to be a time drain at town meeting, is all I'm saying.
I'm gonna recommend maybe our vote pushing this to March 20th meeting. How does that sound with a handful of others? And then we'll work ahead. Unless does anyone else have any strong thoughts on it? Because I'm into planning board stuff. I have not read the details of this one here. I've just kind of glanced through it, to be honest with you. And it looked administrative to me, but Marion's looked at it, I think, more deeply. Any thoughts on pushing this to March 20th?
To the 20th, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's okay. And maybe, if Heidi and planning board are able to make some little language changes, maybe that would make it easier to get through this. But as it is, if it's presented like this in the warrant, people are going to stop and say, wait a minute, what are they talking about here? What is this? It's going to be a little bit hard to get it through. Just because
Jeannie? Oh,
it's
sorry.
complicated. Yeah.
I thinking that maybe Chris Canny should be at your meeting to talk about this because he was pretty instrumental in a lot of these zoning updates. And
he's
he
one who
could
experienced it.
explain it really well.
Yeah, that's good.
I like that. Maybe if Jeremy, you could reach out to Chris Canny and see if he's available on the evening of the 20th. I think that'd be great. Does anyone
That would
know,
be
either
good.
Diane or
And if there's-
Jeremy, any insight on meeting on 20th? Can 20th be and I'm sure we're gonna have the hearing on the Comcast, which is gonna get deferred until in the year or something. But other than that,
There isn't a lot on the March 20th meeting as of now.
There you go. So we'll do some of this cleanup stuff.
One thing is
Um,
Chris would have to do it on Zoom, he lives in the Cape.
Yep, that's
The
fine.
only thing scheduled for that meeting is the Comcast hearing.
Yeah, yeah, so good. So that'll be 5 seconds
Yeah.
of deferring. Um, okay. Any objection? Hearing none. ADU regulations, Article 18. I do believe this is largely administrative because this is basically the state law that is actually like pushing made by right a lot of ADU stuff. But does anyone have any questions, comments on this?
Well, I think it needs to sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
Yeah, yeah, no, I hear you.
I think they need to clarify the issue of ownership in this bylaw. And that could be contentious at town meeting, but it's kind of a crucial point that's not mentioned here. And I know that it came up at the hearing, and Natick has, and the state have provisions on ownership of an accessory unit. The question being, can the main house and the accessory house have two different owners? There are reasons why it probably can't, but I think somehow it has to be explicit in the bylaw so that it's clear to everyone who might want to try to say, do a duplex and call it an accessory unit or something.
But I thought that it's on the same parcel, right? Like you can't, I mean, I know they have duplexes, and duplexes have common ownership of the actual parcel, but then separate ownership of each budding whatever it is connected homes. I thought this had to be on the same parcel, which by definition would have one owner,
But a duplex is on the same parcel.
owned by a homeowner association, owned by collectively owned by both.
Okay.
See
Yeah,
what I mean?
that is true. Okay, well, maybe that's not
Duplex.
it. Okay.
I'm willing to vote on this to accept it basically like you can accept it in concept, or maybe you can actually bring it up again. I don't want to defer everything to the 20th. What are people's thoughts on this?
It's pretty
I'm
much required.
Bueller? Okay.
I'm happy to vote on it tonight.
Okay. Yeah, I and I don't know. It doesn't feel like this is going to open up a whole can of worms to like, putting duplexes everywhere or condo complexes everywhere. Um, and I hate to say this, but like, if something does start slipping through the cracks, we can't amend this on something on those lines.
Yeah, that's
Because sometimes you know, try to close every single door, you wind up closing all doors, every single like, loophole. Yeah, Heidi?
Yeah, so you had, so I had to drive back from my daughter's house, so I couldn't talk before. The ADU, we're making it into a protected use ADU and a special permit ADU. The special permit is the one that we have, the up to 1,200, so it does have an ownership requirement and that you have to either live in one or the other, but the state says the protected use ones cannot require that. So you can have two rentals, your main house and your other one, but it is almost creating duplexes. It's a tough regulation. So we kind of figured this is round one, which is why we didn't get too heavy into this, because they're still coming out with some of what the rules are going to mean and what the regulations are actually going to say. So we figured we're back next town meeting with actually fine tuning this.
Okay.
right. Oh, go ahead. We can talk about this offline.
Okay. I think it's just kind of like not I don't call it housekeeping, but compliance with essentially the existing by right states. Any motions relative to this?
Move to support.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
Right.
Paul?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
And I as well. I think that's it for Heidi, by the way. We have anything else? All I have left is a public meeting bylaw. But she leaves, we'll definitely move the 3A to the last one. All right, public meeting bylaw, recording bylaw. We talked about this at the last meeting. Wasn't there one or two things? Someone remind me, there's one or two things at the end that we actually were looking at. I think those got corrected.
We asked Jeremy to provide some language to tighten up a few
That's
provisions.
right.
And he's done,
Recording shall not be edited for content. That was one of them. Good
yeah,
issues like profanity and stuff like that. And it looks like that has actually been Jeremy, go ahead.
Yeah, so there was a couple edits here that you wanted. So we reordered something. So moved the list of the committees up front to make it clear who the bylaw applies to. Made it so, yeah, shall not be edited for content. And then item F was the one that I added some color to. So the unedited recording shall be archived with the town for a minimum of 6 years. Looking at the state requirements for archiving, since these videos are actually not subject to the public records, and that they're generally used to create meeting minutes, which then are. So there's the state's requirements for keeping these sorts of records are silent. So I added a minimum of 6 years that seemed to be consistent with other similar records. And then just said, or as required under Massachusetts statewide record retention schedule, should they update the statewide requirements. And then I said that the recording shall be made available upon request. So the thought is that we would save the raw recordings. There was some discussion at your last meeting about the Dover Sherborn cable TV and how they share them on YouTube and they edit them. That's all great, but for the purpose of the bylaw, I thought that we would keep the raw recordings in Zoom for a minimum of 6 years and make those available upon request. Though we would still, carry on with the current process of providing the videos to Dover Sherborn TV for them to edit and then to air and to also put on YouTube. But for compliance with this bylaw, it would be the raw footage that we have available upon request.
I remember that. I like that a lot. I do like that a lot. I do
I
think
did-
it's raw.
And I did talk to the Dover Sherborn cable TV folks as far as how long they keep their files. Pretty much indefinitely. So whatever they receive from the town, they generally keep just indefinitely. They don't really have a retention schedule. So they could always pull files out as well, kind of as a backup, if you will. And as far as YouTube, I guess it's really as long as YouTube's in business, that it may be available.
Okay, they'll
For
be
the
busy.
purpose of the bylaw, we would keep the raw footage in Zoom for a minimum of 6 years and just make that available upon request.
Okay, excellent. I like that. Stephen.
Do you know, Jeremy, for like the town's Zoom account, having the ability to keep the raw footage for 6 years, does that cost more than whatever the current town account subscription is?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
All right.
My same question. That's why I lowered my
okay.
hand.
so.
Okay, do you have any motions relative, Paul, do you have something?
Yes,
We
I
could
wanted to
always
move
pull it
this.
off too. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
To answer that question, we could always pull it down, download it, and save it on a disk.
Okay.
To save space in the Zoom account.
So can I move to support?
Please. Absolutely. That's so moved. And a second.
Second,
All right, all in favor, Stephen, Jeff,
all right.
Paul,
Aye.
Marion.
aye.
Okay, that takes care of our holds. Most were addressed, some were deferred. Paul had an issue they brought up during one of the votes about putting the town clerk last.
Yes, I have a motion on that.
Well, yeah, it was kind of during a vote, so it kind of wasn't real. Just let's bring it for discussion real quick then. Any thoughts on
Yes,
the town position of town clerk?
I'd like to move it to be Article 11.
11.
Make it as flip all over. What are you doing? Article 11.
What's so between all the capital stuff and before the use of free cash?
Yeah, actually, I meant to be after the financial stuff, so it would be after 11.
After 11.
So it would go in as Article 12.
And and first of all, do I have a second? And then I'll bring a discussion. Otherwise, no discussion if I don't get a second.
I'd like to hear Paul's logic before seconding the.
Okay. Yeah, Paul, do you have a rationale? You touched on it briefly, but it was kind of inappropriately during another vote, so I wanted to have a standalone discussion right now.
Okay, so I think this is a really important structural change. It greatly benefits the town clerk position in the town. Right now, the town clerk's salaries, for example, as elected officials, have to be annually set, and they can't be guaranteed, and all those kinds of things. This article would fix that. Would also allow us to hire an interim town clerk or a permanent town clerk who's a professional town clerk that doesn't live in the town. So it's an important structural change to the town government, and I believe it should be voted on by a representative group of town meeting attendees. Once you get into this long stuff about zoning that follows shortly thereafter, I feel like a lot of people are going to be leaving after Article 11 and before Article 15. And given the importance of this structural change, which is going to last for years, decades, maybe even centuries, it should be this is be the best location for it. Give it its best chance for a representative vote.
Well, I'll just put a point of discussion. That will put a citizens petition last, so I will not support that. If you have something else that actually people will stay for to put last, maybe 3A or something like that. But otherwise, we're going to do what we did every single year, and people just leave during citizens petitions and things like that. So I will not support unless you put another article of which I believe people will attend in its place at the end.
That's what I thought we had decided on 3, but we didn't. 3A.
3A, we put at 21. It didn't feel like there wasn't much discussion, so I was trying to read into it. People didn't feel like people want to put that at the last because the thought is that would get shot down because you'd have more than naysayers showing up and putting that at the last. But that's why we put the clerk at the last because people will stay for the clerk, they'll stay for 3A, probably two of the harder things. So that's actually sitting at number 21. It's sitting 4 before that, 4 or 5 before that right now. I mean, it does feel like this is kind of a political push. If you want 3A to be shot down, you can put it at the end. If you want the clerk to be shot down, you put it, I don't want to make that analogy. My motivation is people to keep a quorum. That's my motivation.
Well, my motivation is to have a representative group vote on this thing. I've seen in too many town meetings, towards the end of town meetings, you have sort of the diehard group. And any question shouldn't be decided by the diehard group. It should be a more diverse group. Should include young people who have children that they're worried about getting home to, should include all ages, all income groups, so on and so on. So that's why I want the town clerk thing to be fairly considered by a representative group. It's not in the location isn't about trying to force a favorable vote or force a disfavorable vote. It's to get a representative and fair vote.
Then what articles do you don't think a representative fair vote are appropriate or necessary? That's what it boils down to, right? Something's going to be last, right?
I think
I'm not
every
going to vote for
article,
anything that puts a citizen petition last because people walk out. So I'm not going to vote for that. Maybe
So
maybe the other 4 will.
the citizen petition one is a no-brainer. It's gonna get voted. There's gonna be nobody objecting to it.
Not with less than 100 people. That's the point, Paul. That's the point. Everyone thinks it's going to pass and they walk out. That's why it's there.
Well, some of these other ones are controversial, so they're likely to get the wacko opponents. staying to the end and being biased, like,
The strongly opinionated, Jeff, the strongly opinionated.
yes, that's the ones I meant, exactly.
Yeah, there are no wacko voters in town.
I don't know,
I was
I
one or
like
two.
Paul's motion, I like where he put it, but I think before we vote on that, we have to decide what to make last.
I would
Okay, so
say the
what's-
3A. I mean, that's what was my position before, and it still is my position.
Okay, let's have discussion. We have a motion. We don't have a second. I'm going to assume that Paul's motion, based on this discussion, is to put the 3A last and move this to right after fiscal articles, number 11. We can figure it out.
Yes.
Do I have discussion?
I don't know, well.
I mean, are we really sure this is gonna go 2 nights?
Mhm. No, but even worse if it doesn't go 2 nights, because then you really will have the hardcore people, the strong opinion people there. 2 nights is almost better to some degree. Is there any school stuff we can put at the end?
Let's just pull like the turf field and
put
the
it last.
track. We'll just pull that out of capital and just put it last.
Your field always works.
That's a great idea.
Even putting the fiscal stuff at the beginning is just tradition, is all it is. I do know that if we stuck capital or on the budget at the end, I'll recognize in a second, Jay. If we've stuck it at the end, I bet you the someone would make a motion at the floor of town meeting and take it out of order. I think that one's like so crazy. You know what I mean?
The reason why you
Jackie,
don't,
give me
you absolutely have to have your budget established at the annual town meeting. You really got to have those up front while you have a quorum, while you have a meeting.
I know effectively why it is, and it probably would get moved anyway. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm just being repetitive. Jackie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that no matter where the town clerk thing is, article is, if it passes at town meeting, it still has to pass at the annual town election, and we always don't get a huge turnout there. But in order for it to take place, it has to pass at both. So,
That's an interesting point.
All right, we have a motion without a second.
The motion is to move the town clerk to whatever number, 11 or whatever.
11, yeah. And simultaneously move 3A to the end.
I'll set, well, why don't we do separate votes?
Yeah.
I'll second Paul's motion to move the clerk.
If it's separate votes, I'm gonna vote no for both, just so you know that. Because that will put at risk a citizen petition at the end.
All right, well, I guess, do you feel that the town clerk is the best one to put at the end?
Honestly, I don't have a strong feeling with if it's a clerk or 3A. I really don't. I just worry about those quorums.
So
I
how
do.
about this? How about that we move, modify my motion to move 2 articles to be Article 12 and Article 13. One is the town clerk and the other is the citizen petition for government study committee. Move those to those positions.
I'll support that.
So then what's what would make the last?
Last, those were,
Yeah, that's true.
What's the last at that point? Oh, public meeting recording bylaw, would that then be the last? No, town meeting quorum would be last.
Yeah, that's ironic. We don't get a quorum to change the quorum. I want to do that. That would be like the highlight of town meeting. If we lost a quorum to change the quorum. I support that. I support moving the town clerk and the citizen petition to whatever, 12 and 13 or 11 and 12, right at the fiscal items. We already voted, so keep the 3A at number 21 or after the whatever, the affordable housing. So that's your motion, Paul?
Yes.
I'll second that.
but what's last now? I'm confused.
The
Town meeting
quorum, to
quorum
lower
is
the quorum. So if we don't have a quorum, we can't lower the quorum. It's
Okay.
late right now, and that's just too appropriate.
But only if somebody calls the quorum in advance of the vote about
That's
the
right.
quorum.
All I know is this town meeting, I'm going to personally get a comfortable chair for Sarah Raggy to sit in right by a microphone to call every vote. She calls every vote.
All right, if that's what you guys want,
That's a motion and a second. Continued discussion. Marion?
Yeah, I'm really uncomfortable with moving the 3A zoning even as far down as 21. I
We
mean,
did vote for it though.
Yeah, we've already done it though.
oh, we did it already. Okay,
Yeah.
forget.
So you'd have to convince us to move it somewhere
Yeah,
else.
it was kind of unanimous
Okay,
too,
okay.
which makes it early for the second night, just so you know. So, um, I do want to stick. We have a motion and a second. I'm going to call the vote on this, on the one we just discussed. Stephen,
All right.
Jeff,
Right.
Paul,
Aye.
Marion,
Aye.
I am I as well. The quorum is last.
Right.
All right. We've beaten this up. I try to be better at this every year. So my third year chairing this type of thing, and it is hurting cats every year. Not you guys, it's the whole thing and how to do this. We learn a little bit each time, but I do think probably one of the earlier dates we've actually voted on town meeting articles. I'm actually pleased about that. Some lingering stuff for the 20th. We'll do our homework. We'll try to get people to come before it, and some are definitely deferred to the 22nd, where we hear from groups such as the Dover Sherborn committee, Dover Sherborn Regional Group there. Any last thoughts on town meeting? Okay.
Now, what do we have on the 6th? Our next meeting's the 6th, is that right?
Yeah, so not much because that is
We have
the
caucus that night. So one
caucus.
question I had is what time are we starting on the 6th
So
too?
it'll be hybrid in person. Caucus starts at 7:30. Diane, is it what items do we have?
We only have the one item, which is the review of the applications for the new water commissioners.
Excellent, excellent. So that way I
That's
don't
the
have to
only
attend.
one
That way
item we have.
so Stephen will chair that one. Excellent. Jackie, you got anything?
Yeah, caucus starts at 8.
8.
Oh,
Yeah.
is it? Okay,
It's
okay.
8 o'clock.
Honestly, because I do recuse myself, Stephen, what are your thoughts on does it have, can that be a 7 o'clock meeting and be good enough? Do you want to do 6:30?
I think 7. There's not gonna be. There's no executive session, right?
No.
Yeah. I think 7 should be fine.
Okay.
You
If
want to
that's
leave
on
by
the agenda.
7:30 for caucus, correct?
7:40 or where we've done.
Yeah. I mean,
Probably
we
7
just-
o'clock would be fine to start the
yeah, we just
meeting.
have to walk across the street, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
I'll save you seats. All right. Um, that is a good thought though. So okay, next up, number 5, consent agenda. Any motions relative to the consent agenda?
Move approval.
Second. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second,
Okay, all in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
find the agenda.
Yeah.
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And Miriam?
Aye.
I might as well. Okay, select board reports. I don't know if there's known, but just so people know, and this is more to the public as well, but there's a application submitted to the select board for, I guess it's a revised 40B. I don't know if Jeannie's there. She's probably watching a hockey game. She probably should be. A revised 40B for Washington Street. So it's quite different than what was originally proposed, and that's available just for if the public wants to look at it. Now it's just largely some A&Rs, another looks like accessory apartment dwelling by right, and just a smaller lot which just simply has four total units, 2 duplexes. More of just an FYI
Right.
to in the general
Bob is also, real quick, he's gonna send me PDFs of like the important part, and I'll create a new page on the land management page on the website.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. The second thing is, for me, we talked about, I guess, Ron Capron won't be there. It'll be hybrid on March 6th. We discussed this, I think, back in January. And some concerns with the flu pandemic. It's my intention to make a hybrid for the next few meetings. I'd like to give it a try. I think it's appropriate. I think, hybrid in general, Zoom capability gets better attendance. But I think there's just a difference of some having especially the board members live when they can be. A board member can still Zoom in, but I think I would like to, move forward and try this hybrid setup for at least 2 or 3 meetings.
Yeah, that works for me, except I'd be traveling a little bit in March.
Any other select board reports?
Well, I was just gonna sort of add in on the historic museum. I spoke a little bit at the session of the Historical Society, which now Doug is now the chair. George Fisk officially retired.
Okay.
So they're definitely working on funding sources I won't, remember I told you I was helping them a little bit with some philanthropic funding sources, so that's
good.
change in the article is how much they're asking from the town. And I
Okay,
don't think
that's
it's
huge.
fully defined, but they've already have a start towards funding already.
Excellent. Marion?
Jeff, can I ask a question of Jeff's report?
Sure.
Just be cautious on making an actual like discussion dialogue. There's no decisions with this, but I
Yeah,
just get a
yeah.
little cautious
Right.
on the reports being like, you know.
Okay. Was there any discussion on a more scaled down version of the architect's plan?
Well, that's a consideration. I'm opposed to that, vehemently opposed, because what usually happens, we've done that with every building in town, and we did it with the firehouse, and when we went to pay to paint the firehouse, the siding crumbled because we put shitty ass particle board on the outside. So when they call it value engineering, but it ends up costing the town more money long term because we redid the high school and didn't put HVAC in. That's why we had that whole project a year and a half ago on the HVAC. Value engineering comes out to bite you in the ass, is my experience.
So
Well,
with the
actually,
intent of the recording bylaw, I'd like to edit out with Jeff's little
Yeah. But anyway, long story short, yes is the answer to your question, but they're trying to avoid doing that by getting enough funding on their own.
okay.
Okay. So Jeremy, you have anything? Or are you good?
No, I'm good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any other select board reports? Yeah, Paul?
Can I move to adjourn then, if the
I'd
town
like to hear
administrator has no report?
town manager report. Any town manager reports?
I thought you just,
None this evening. Thank you.
Then yes, you can, Paul.
all right. Can I move to adjourn?
All right. All in favor? Do I have a second?
Second,
Before I vote, I want us all to be, we can watch Canada USA, but you have to be furious at Team USA because they allowed Charlie McAvoy to get seriously injured. So the Bruins definitely did not benefit from having players on Team USA.
That is too bad, actually. All right. All in favor, Stephen?
All right.
Jeff?
Right?
Paul?
I'm sure the Bruins didn't intentionally allow somebody to get injured. Aye.
Hey, Marianne?
We didn't allow
no
them to get
comment.
cheated.
Aye.
All right. I'm an A because I'm having too much fun. All right. Have a
Jeff?
good one.
Good night,
I'll see you all
everybody.
on March 6th.
Good night.
Good night.